You're probably best known for co-founding Social Chain with Stephen Bartlett.
I think we had about 5 million students at our fingertips at that point.
5 million?
5 million, yeah. And we went to brands and said, look, we can reach students, help you influence culture. Big companies that now have hundreds of millions of followers were like, no, we're not going to go on it. When Social Chain started to get traction and all these anxieties and pressures and worries started to creep in, it hit me hit me hard.
He's a successful business owner, but he's also an alcoholic.
The drinking now is always drinking to excess. It's always just battering yourself.
The acceptance that you need to make the change is the hardest part. You can learn to overcome any problem. Saturday was the last day I drank, and Sunday was the day I broke down, and Monday I went to go see a therapist. I text him every single year on my anniversary. I say thank you for saving my life. Sobriety gives you everything you thought alcohol gives you.
What steps did you take to make that change? Hi, I'm Dr. Jane Leonard. I'm a GP and cosmetic doctor, and this is the Confidence Clinic. Every week, I'm going to be sitting down with different guests to talk about their life story. We're going to talk about how they got to where they've got, the challenges they've overcome along the way, and how confidence has played a role in their journey. Welcome, Don McGregor, to the Confidence Clinic. Thank you so much for joining me today.
No problem.
I'm really excited to chat to you about loads of things really from your professional life and personal life. Both are really inspiring stories. Just to set the scene, I'll tell everyone a bit about you. So you're probably best known for co-founding Social Chain with Stephen Bartlett. You both set that up when you were 20. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, 19.
19, wow. And then since then, you've gone on to develop other businesses yourself, so the Fearless Academy. Mm-hmm. And you also speak openly about your personal struggles with alcohol and now being sober, so you talk about that. So if we rewind back and thinking about the old Dom, what did the old Dom look like? What was he like?
Yeah, my life kind of is in two parts, I guess. 10 years ago, I started Student Problems, which became the kind of foundations of Social Chain. But what I was like as a 19-year-old was very much, I'd say, run-of-the-mill, very stereotypical. I wasn't an entrepreneur. I wasn't the kid at school selling sweets. That wasn't how I started my life.
Yeah.
I was very much, love playing football. Would play that most weekends. Would go out to the pub afterwards. Went to university, lived the kind of fresher, proper student life.
Yeah.
Did that properly, and that's how I was. I think I always look back to Student Problems, which was the first Twitter account I ever started, and I think the reason why it resonated with other students so well and it grew to hundreds of thousands of followers was because it was just typical student stuff, and it was just nothing, too niche that people won't understand. That it was just this guy is just a typical student and he's just experiencing the same things I'm experiencing. So yeah, that's what 19-year-old 10 years ago me was like. And then once I started to look into doing more in the social media space, met Steve, and Social Chain began transformational as a person, I guess.
Yeah. So interestingly, that whole Student Problems was actually the catalyst to kicking off the whole thing, wasn't it? Because that's how Social Chain started through that.
So Steve had a website which was trying to get students to it. I had Student Problems, which I was running from my university. And what we did one day is we met, and then we drove people from Student Problems to Wall Park, which was to the website. And then in a minute 30 seconds, 300 people went from social media to the website, and we were like, wow. That's this stuff is powerful. You can people do things when you tell them to do things. So we came in originally to build out more social media pages to make Wall Park successful, and Wall Park didn't work, so that we ended up having these social media pages and nothing to do. So what we tried to do then was create a business from these social media pages.
Right.
We had a bit of experience in working with Wall Park, but realized that these social media pages had a lot of influence and a lot of power. And I think we had about 5 million students at our fingertips at that point. So we could
5 million?
5 million, yeah. Across Facebook pages, Twitter pages, running that content every single day. And we went to brands and said, look, we can reach students, we can be, help you influence culture. And some brands were like, no, social media is not here to stay. It'll be like MySpace, Bebo. Big companies that now have hundreds of millions of followers were like, no, we're not going to go on it. But some people were like, yeah, let's give it a test. Let's give it a try. And that was kind of the first kind of start of what we called at the time Social Chain, and it was just a chain of social media pages.
So how did you two first meet? Were you at uni together, or were you friends?
So I was running Student Problems, and then basically one day I put an email in my bio saying reach students at hotmail.com, basically as an idea of like, oh yeah, some people might want to work with me, so I'll put an email in there. And for a long time I was trying to be like anonymous, like I didn't want people to know it was me. It was like, I'm just running this Twitter account, like I don't want to tell people what I'm doing.
Why was that?
It's a weird thing,
Okay.
Now it's normal. Now
Yeah.
it's like really normal, like to say, oh yeah, I have a community on social media. Back then I was like, yeah, I just spend my days tweeting.
Yeah.
I don't want to be associated with that. And I think it was a time where it was like, no one knew what it meant, so it didn't need me behind it.
Yeah.
It didn't need a name.
Yeah.
So putting an email in there was like, trying to like that first step outside of anonymous life. So yeah, I got a couple of emails from people at that point. Steve was one of them, and I for some reason decided to reply to Steve because the email felt like it was a good email to reply to. Had a call with him, met him in York, and then he talked to me about Wallpark. I talked to him about what I was going to plan with the social media pages, and then for some reason, I decided to drop out university and go and try and make this thing a success.
God, that's a really ballsy thing to do then. So you left uni to pursue this, yeah?
Yeah, I left university for £500 a month job to try and run social media pages. People will say I'm crazy.
Well, not what I mean. I think it's pretty ballsy and really brave, and obviously a brilliant decision in hindsight to make.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's also the big part is there was nothing to lose.
Yeah.
It couldn't go wrong. All I had to do next year, all I'd do is go back to university.
Of course, yeah.
So like there was nothing to lose.
That's a really good way of looking at it, actually, isn't it? That you can always go back. If it doesn't work out, you can just go back.
I think the beautiful thing about being a student is you're genuinely at rock bottom already. You are.
Yeah.
You're in thousands of pounds of debt.
Yeah.
But it's a great time of life because it's the time when someone's actually paying for you.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry too much about costs. You've got a great lot of time, a lot of energy, and it's a great time to start a business. I'll try and start a business because if it goes wrong, you've still got plenty of time ahead of you. Like imagine getting to the point where like you start to get older, where you have kids and a mortgage and car.
Yeah, his responsibility. Yeah.
Like you can't just then drop all that and go.
Yeah.
We can go into another debate whether that's a trap and stuff. But once you've got those things set up, you can't just stop your life. You can't just leave your job and start a business because, running a business isn't easy. But if you do that, at some point you've got to start from zero and build yourself up.
Yeah,
again,
and it's like, when do you start from zero? When's the right fit?
Yeah, and how do you manage that energy when you've got kids waking you up at 4 a.m? So like I got so much admiration for entrepreneurs who've done it later in life, who have got kids. I just don't understand how you can do it because obviously A, I've not experienced it, but B, from my experience, when you've got nothing to lose, you approach life a lot differently. And that's how we felt. It's like genuinely at 19 years old, like, I think my rent was £300. So as long as I made £300 every month, I was like, fine.
You're right. So then, going back to like you're 19, you've taken the leap of faith to leave uni, build up what's already growing in the background, the social media business. How were you feeling then? Were you confident it's going to work? What were your thoughts?
I think, going back to saying that it was a ballsy move to drop out of university, I think I always had this air of confidence.
Yeah.
Or like maybe like blind faith.
Yeah.
Like maybe like just like a delusion, It's gone from confidence to delusion in 30 seconds. But that's probably what it was. It was probably like a sense of, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
I will be fine. So whatever decision I'm making, I'm going to be okay with it. But I'm also going to make it work. I'm very competitive. So when I make a decision for something like that, I'm going to have to go after it.
Yeah.
So how I felt was like, nothing to lose. This could work, it might not work, but belief that whatever we were going to come out with was going to be something.
So you had that innate self-belief driving you forward, which presumably you shared with Steve, so the team together.
Yeah, maybe just maybe delusion. Maybe, honestly, maybe like a real delusion that, what we were doing was the right stuff. And I think it really helped that we were in a sector where we could be experts.
Yeah.
Because social media was so young, but we were in it for like 2-3 years and we could walk into a room and say to people we were an expert. And that, that is not like a massive ego play. That is not like a massive brag, but genuinely we were. We'd built massive communities on social media. We'd understood the platforms better than anyone else. And there's not many situations where after 2 years you can walk into a room and be an expert.
Yeah.
When you work in the medical
world,
you can't.
Of course,
do 2 years and be like, I'm an expert.
Yeah.
People go, what?
But I suppose you were like living it. You were going through the powers in your process of what you've learned, right? And that's what it's about. It's not what you get at the end and say, right, we've accomplished this. It's actually what you've learned on that journey that entitles you to that expert label that you've achieved.
And that's what we were playing with, is that we were helping brands get on social media back in the early days. and we could say that we were an expert because we'd built our own communities.
Yeah, of course.
So it really helped that, that delusion and confidence and faith we had in ourselves was backed up by real level of skill that was needed at a time in the market when there was people being like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
So, it was a perfect storm for us and perfect timing. And what we realized maybe like a year in is that we've got an opportunity just now to run at it.
Yeah.
I always talk about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the golden ticket.
Yeah.
You don't know when you're going to get your hand on that golden ticket.
Yeah.
And when you get that golden ticket, you've got to run to your destination because everyone else wants it.
Of course.
So like people look at, there's a scene in the movie when he's literally people are trying to nick it. And that's how we felt, we felt like, so Social Chain was a golden ticket. It felt like it was like the one where we're like, oh my God, this is for tons of reasons. This is the right time, right place. And that's a very naive thing to have at such a young age, but we felt that was how we felt.
That's amazing to hear, because when you're telling this story, and obviously I'm looking at this in retrospect to what you're describing, I'm imagining you and Steve as like young entrepreneurs, which you were call yourselves now. Back then, it's having that belief that, to keep going, to keep moving forward with it. But would you say, there's a question I really want to ask you, doing what you've done, do you think you were naturally born with those skills, or have you developed them?
I think it's definitely a combination of both. I think the one thing you definitely have to have is that kind of like, self-confidence. And that is, I remember I went back to my like 10-year school reunion the other week, and it was like, I was talking to one of the girls, and I was like, I've obviously been open about my struggles afterwards, in my 20s. But I said to her, when did you first get like anxiety? And she was like, oh, maybe like 14. And I was like, I didn't have, and this is probably why it hit me like it did. I didn't have any worries in life until 22.
Right.
Never had anxiety, never had self-doubt, never had, depression, never had, I was a bundle of joy. Maybe that's who I am now, but I was generally just a happy person. And then, when Social Chain started to get traction and all these like anxieties and pressures and worries started to creep in, it hit me it hit me hard. And I was like, what is going on? I've never experienced this kind of like self-doubt and this voice in your head and this negative mindset and all this stuff. And, that probably was combine that with the drinking, the drugs and the pressure probably made it much worse for me.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things in that, Dom. I suppose, like, with any business, with anything that you grow in or developing yourself, the highs are high, but the lows are low, right? And everyone leans on a coping strategy to numb out the reality of what's going on. And in your case, it's drugs and alcohol, as it is with many people. Can you remember, like, looking back, like, how you actually felt? I know you're saying, like, the anxiety things, but day to day, what was it unfolding like?
Yeah, and again, it all happened very quickly. So, what I kind of look back on is this kind of idea of drunk Dom, which is the drunk version of me. And drunk Dom was at first like a really fun person.
Yeah.
And my life would be like, again, great. Like I said, I was that 19-year-old going out of university, having fun time. But when I started to get to, 22, really, I got in a really bad relationship.
Yeah.
And the kind of doubt and pressure really started to seep in with Social Chain, and it started to go from being, a bit of fun, a group of mates having fun, to like being like a proper business. And that was like a really, really, really quick.
It's mad that at 22.
Yeah. And it was really quick transition. Like it was like, I think we raised our first money in November 2014 to like November 2015 was like we got our first £1 million investment. And then by July 2016, I was stopped drinking. So like, it was like.
How old are you when you stopped drinking?
Just turned 23.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so that like 22 to, 23.
What a transition in such a short time.
Short period of time. And like, a year, 6 months before we got investment, our first investment. So like, call this like a 18-month journey. Steve and I were like working from our boxes in Thailand.
Yeah.
To then go and run 50 people with multi-million-pound contracts. Like it was like that. It was like so, the downward spiral was so quick. So, I tell a story through Drunk Dom where Drunk Dom was a really fun person, and you would make your life better when you did things when you went out. You'd meet new people, you'd network, you'd leave a positive impression. But then Drunk Dom used to leave bad impressions with tons of people and started to cause my life problems. So Drunk Dom was creating problems for Sober Dom. And this was a whole host of things like, had a very bad girlfriend at the time, very much into like alcohol, drinking, partying, which I thought you're supposed to do. You look at the like celebrity lifestyles of what you're supposed to do when you get to like 20. It's like, oh yeah, party, drugs, girls, and that's what you're supposed to do. So that was like having to readjust like the calibrations you had on life was like a big part of it. I was like, this isn't fun. This is actually making me worse. And like those weekends where, you know, it'd just be Monday to Sunday getting battered. I remember my 23rd birthday, you know, just before I stopped drinking, like I woke up on my birthday, which was a Saturday, and just spent the entire day in like my dark cinema room. I had this massive cinema room, massive screen, downstairs on like the basement floor of this big house we lived in. Just didn't want to see anyone. Just felt miserable. I was
Just so hungover and like
hungover, anxiety, like worrying about the future. And then like the only way I could stop that, like on my own birthday, everyone planned out to go out for a meal for my birthday. Said I couldn't go. The only way I could get over the feeling was to start drinking again. And that was like I think it was a Sunday. That was a Sunday of just me like
God.
too anxious to go out.
That's your birthday.
It was my birthday. Yeah, it was 25th birthday. Yeah, too anxious to go out to my own birthday meal, but just had to drink to get through the day. Then I invented something called Tequila Sundays, where I just do tequila on Sundays.
On your own or just whatever?
Sometimes on my own, but like it started off with a girl, a new girl, and then it'd be like I sent a picture like, oh, Tequila Sunday. Just if she's not with me. So like, you know, you come to a point where you need to get through.
It's when the fun isn't fun anymore.
Yeah, but you don't realise. You just think you tell yourself, you create stories and narratives in your head which justify it. So like I justified it by like, oh yeah, me and this girl had loads of fun on Sunday by getting drunk once, so let's carry on doing it.
Yeah.
And, you know, so then I started to invite around on Sundays to drink.
Yeah.
So like you invent these stories and talk about the highs being high and the lows being low. No matter how high a high is, in those moments, say you win a massive contract or, you know, you just do something, when you're celebrating those highs, there's not much you can do in that moment to make it even better. But when you're having a low, there's thousands of things you can do to make it worse.
I get what you mean.
So the highs have got a ceiling, but the lows have got
the lows can just spiral.
Exactly, and that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
Because your highs can only go so high. You can, but the thing only goes so high. But then the lows, you can keep getting lower and lower and lower and lower.
So thinking back to that, then, so what was the time, or the day, or the event that made you think, God, right, this has to stop? Or realise that like it was something that a change needed to happen?
That's all. That kind of the cycle of change I talk about quite a lot is like it's a constant in the back of your mind, like, but the acceptance that you need to make the change is the hardest part. And I couldn't make that acceptance by myself. I needed other people to tell me that you need to sort yourself out. Borderline like intervention.
Really?
You know, yeah. And that's the problem. Alcoholics and drug addicts are very sneaky people. So like, you learn to become an expert in lying. You can learn to become an expert in hiding things. You know, to the point where like, just drinking alone at 4 a.m. in your bedroom on a Friday night because that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
And that kind of like, you know, drunk texting ex-girlfriends and people and like all the kind of stuff that you just do so no one sees it.
And then you wake up to it all in a bad way.
And then you feel shit and then you carry on drinking again. Yeah. So like you become very good at hiding it, you know, and that's what I did. I was maybe in that situation for like 3-4 months where I was just hiding it, you know, hanging out with different people, not letting anyone see behaviour patterns. Because over a period of time, if you see behaviour patterns, then you can be like, you've got a problem. No one probably felt they could say anything to me because who would? My parents didn't see me enough to say it. My friends didn't see me enough to say it. So no one could really call me out on it. And that's what I was kind of getting to that point. But then like, you know, you hit a point where drunk Dom creates so many problems for other people and for sober Dom that it tangles it up in a web where someone could call you out and someone says what you're doing not acceptable and you need to do something about it. And then the realization hits that you've hurt other people, you've upset your life, and then you go, I have a problem.
Who called you out on it?
So Steve called me out. My girlfriend at the time called me out. Both of them said, you're not acting. This isn't you. This isn't you. And I think the thing that did for me was a kind of realization that, I wasn't in a good place and that I wasn't the person everyone knew I am, and the actions I was doing isn't reflective of who I was as an individual. And then that opens up a very difficult conversation because then you've got to start talking about how you feel and being a 23-year-old guy and explaining how you feel. God, men can't do that anyway.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of first parameter again of getting called out on my actions became the wake-up call for me to talk about how I'm feeling. And that
was it easy to talk? Sorry to interrupt you.
No, because if it was easy to talk, I'd have done it months ago.
No, I mean, but when they approach you on it, sorry, what's what I meant.
Oh.
When they kind of opened it up with the catalyst, was it easier then or no different?
I think you get very good at lying as an addict, and you get very good, but once you're backed into a corner, you've got to do something.
Yeah.
And like, my nature is not to fight at all. My nature is to like just open up. So I got backed into a corner where I had no choice. I couldn't lie anymore. I couldn't get out of the situation. I had to run into honesty, and that's how I respond to the situation. So no, it wasn't easy. I broke down, cried. It was difficult to accept those things, admit those things, but it had to be done. And some addicts in those situations will run away as well.
Yeah.
You know, people will be like, I'm just going. I don't want to face it. And I talk about, you know, a lot of time addicts and people who are struggling with problems, they have to remove the pain, which is causing the problems, which is the anxiety, the stress, the you know, the relationship they're in or the job they're in. I had to face the pain, social chain, and the problems that was creating me and the stresses, which were all, you know, tough stresses, but manageable, you know. And I had to go face it. I had to go turn up to work on that Monday and, you know, become a new person. And that was, for me, was always a big part, was like, you learn to overcome that problem, which was a massive problem for me. You can learn to overcome any problem. And that's how I approached it. And I know people in business who have had huge amount of stress from their company and just said, look, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I'd rather keep on drinking, you know.
And
it's not worth it. The pain isn't worth it. But I say to everyone, like, the pain of going through what I went through in terms of the downward spiral, the rock bottom, to be able to come out the other side and grow the business was worth it.
Yeah, like massive respect for that. I mean, also, Dom, like, you know, you say you had to face the pain, and like on that weekend or whatever it was, and you had to face people at work and stuff like that. What steps did you take to make that change?
Yeah, I think the biggest part was, you know, the acceptance of myself that I had a problem. There was no more running, there's no more hiding, there's no more lying. I had to bear the facts. And, you know, I said, for first I said, I don't know what's wrong. You know, I don't know what is wrong with me, but I just know I'm not right. And that was like, again, such an open-ended point.
Yeah.
I don't know. And that's what's caused me the problems. I don't know what's wrong with me. So my PA at the time, she had like a psychology degree, and she was like, well, you should go and see a psychologist. And I was like, there's people in like white jackets that look after crazy people.
Yeah.
But I found a therapist, literally Google. I booked him in that Monday. That's after the Saturday was the last day I drank. The Sunday was the day I broke down. And the Monday I went to go and see a psychologist, therapist. Turned up to this room in Sale, like shaking, like, you know, just like, what the hell am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I just spent 50 minutes of the hour session talking at this guy, just going on about my life. And he's just writing notes and looking back at me. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know. But it was like therapy. You sit there and talk about things.
Yeah.
You've got an individual in front of you who's just there, like, to listen, to appreciate things and come back with suggestions. So I talked about the pressure I was under, how I felt, how my friends had changed, all these things that I was going through. And he just broke it down into like, this is what you're struggling with, and this is how we'll help it, and we'll go and do a program, we'll give you some homework, and we'll meet every single week, and
Brilliant.
We'll get over it. And like that like, I text him every single year on my anniversary. I say thank you for saving my life, because he did.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. Saved my life. And I owe so much to him in terms of like that period of my life where I felt so alone. That, you know, the seeing him that day when I knew I felt like I was at the bottom, and having someone to listen to and help me and work through it was so, yeah, I'm so appreciative for what he did for me.
You know, he said he knew what was wrong. What exactly kind of things did he say?
Yeah, so I kind of talked around the stresses we've got in the business,
Yeah.
the fact I'm drinking to deal with things. I don't know why I'm drinking so much, but when I'm getting drunk, I'm becoming a worse person. You know, I'm not normally like that. I normally am a fun person. All these kind of things. And he talked around how, like, you know, when what you're doing is essentially you're masking, medicating with alcohol. So, that makes sense. And I'm a very like black and white person. You tell me something, I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah. So, you know, it sounds like, you know, you're really struggling with anxiety around the future because of issues in the business and cash flow, and you don't know what's going to go on with your friends and the company, and you're worried you're going to lose it all. So yeah, that's probably how I feel. Okay, that doesn't help when you drink alcohol because that makes it worse because you go deep root. And he went, I don't think you're depressed, but the way you're speaking is like you're like on the route to depression. And depression comes from having major anxiety. It comes from having low self-confidence. It's like, is that how you feel? I was like, well, now you said it, yeah. I've never had this doubt in my mind, but now I've got it. So yeah, maybe I'm talking myself out of things. So he goes, okay, and then in clinical terms, you got something which we can probably call imposter syndrome because you're like a 22-year-old running this business, and it sounds like it's a lot for you. So you're kind of putting a lot of pressure on yourself and questioning whether you're worthy and all this. So we can address that as well. And I went, yeah, okay. And he said, he said, alcohol's not your problem. And I thought, that's fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. So I can go out and drink tonight. He went, nope. No. Alcohol's not your problem, but it's the way you are coping.
Yeah.
That's your coping strategy. So what it does is also means that when you're trying to solve these problems, your mind's clouded because
and it makes it 10 times worse.
Exactly. So he said, I think if you stop drinking, you can address the problems, and then you'll be a better person. I went, fantastic. How long do I need? Like a month, 2 months? He's like, well, let's start for 6. I was like, 6 months of not drinking. I was like, what am I going to do? But I made a promise to people. I was like, okay, 6 months, I'm not going to drink. I'm going to sort myself out. I'm going to get back into shape. I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to be happy and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, went away and I saw him for 16 weeks out of the 6 months. It was like 10 weeks intensely at first, and then it was every 2 weeks. Got to the end of 6 months, and now I was a different person.
It's amazing to hear, and it just shows actually because many people with mental health problems, or with or without actually, any stressors can lead you to alcohol as a coping mechanism. But I think your story really demonstrates how things can spiral.
Yep.
And I think your story also shows the other side of entrepreneurship or working for yourself that is often glamorized. It's an amazing thing to do. Like I work for myself, and not on the level that you're doing, but sometimes I'm like, God, I need a day off from being me. So everybody's on you, everyone's asking you things, and you're like, but with experience of dealing with things, you learn how to deal with it. But I'm dealing with them now at a lot older age than you were at like 22. So if you kind of look at it and think it's almost inevitable some ways that all that stress is not really a reflection on you as a person. It could happen to anyone at any time. And given that load of weight that's on your shoulders, and when people say, oh, you're working for yourself, you don't have to answer to anyone, but the flip side of that is you've got no one else really other than your co-founders who are probably going through the same things to share the load with.
Yeah, and I think that point of having to answer to yourself is like, it's hard because then you've got no one to tell you not to drink.
Yeah.
It works both ways. Like you've got no one to report to in terms of like life, but then you've got no one to tell you how to guide it. And at 22 years old, you need someone around you to help you shape your life and guide you. And like you say, it's a ridiculously young age. But I had no one around me to help steer me. And people find that in like managers, bosses.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Anyone in leadership. And I didn't have that. And, I had my 22-year-old brain making decisions in a situation where no one could tell me what to do. I had no money issues. I was just like completely feral. And I was like, oh my God.
It's also, when would you really even found the time, that space in your brain to focus on that self-awareness to go, actually, why am I doing this? Why am I ended up in this? Because your mind is basically chocker with all these things coming from it. And then you're not addressing them, they get 10 times worse. And then
I think that's so important. And, you talk about like how small things that you undealt with can manifest so bigly into big problems. And that half the time is what it was. If you kill something quickly, it doesn't become a problem.
Yeah. And action beats anxiety. That's what they say, isn't it?
100%, yeah. And I think when you're 22 years old running this big company, trying to figure out who you are as a person, transitioning from like a life where 18 months ago you were a very different person to your friends you are now, it's like, it's just, like you say, it would happen to anyone.
Yeah, of course. Just touching on self-confidence, as you mentioned how at the start you had this like delusional ideas of your success. You anticipated the journey with self-belief, or maybe not the full extent of it, but had that running self-belief. Then as it started to happen, and the things were all the plates that you're spinning, you're unable to kind of snatch the power back of maybe the journey that you're on. And then as a result, your self-doubt creeps in, self-confidence obviously dwindles a bit. How did you sort of see those things building up when you maybe engaged in therapy? What what can you reflect on in that time?
I think it's a funny thing because, I had a confidence about the world, and that maybe, that first 2 years was like, well, you were too confident.
Yeah.
You didn't take the humble approach and learn as much as you should have learned, and you kind of just ran at things and hit a brick wall. So that's when the doubt probably started to creep in terms of like, oh my God, this actually is so much more difficult than we thought it was. Because like life's about expectations and reality. If the expectation is like really low and the reality is great, then you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. But if your expectations are really high and reality is even higher, you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
So so that kind of then brought in the doubts of, oh my God, this is going to fail, but also the doubts that you're wasting your time. All these kind of things you think about. Why am I running this business? Why am I killing myself?
Yeah.
I could be doing this, could be doing that. So how do you build that back? I think it's a really funny part. I tried to find the confidence in alcohol. So I tried trying to find that one drink kind of Dutch courage kind of vibe where I could walk into a room and feel confident. But reality was like the only time I felt confident was when I stopped drinking, because I built my confidence from having no need to drink.
Yeah.
So
that's the ultimate, isn't it?
It is, and it's so funny that I say to people, alcohol gives you everything. Sobriety gives you everything you thought alcohol gives you. That confidence, that charisma, that chat, that ability to make you a better dancer, whatever it is. That medication for feeling shit after your hard week. You get someone said to me, how do I get that feeling? I went, sobriety gives you that feeling.
Yeah.
And they went, no. I was like, yeah. You get all those feelings from not drinking.
And how has sobriety changed your life? Like, how have those feelings kind of displayed themselves in the actions you've taken since that point?
So, like, imagine being able to walk in a room and not feel anxious.
Yeah.
Imagine just go to sleep at night and not question all the things you've done. Imagine being able to go on a night out and wake up and know exactly what you did last night. Like, imagine feeling like completely all the time, like clear-headed. Like, that feels like something everyone would pay £200 a month for.
Yeah.
If I said you it was in a pill, you'd take it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I know you'd take it.
Yeah, of course.
But like, imagine like you can do all that and it saves you money. It's madness.
I think massive respect to you, Dom, as well, because a lot of people go through similar things. Pressure causes many people to drink and turn to drugs, alcohol, whatever. But sticking to it is another thing.
Yeah.
Like doing it in the short term and kind of going, and then it's even harder to manage then the ups and downs of staying on track, particularly because you were so young.
Yep.
Like at that stage in your life, like you say, everyone's out partying. You're still, working in this growing business that's evolving all the time. So there must have been things to celebrate. There must have been times when you felt that peer pressure to go, right, but something in you kept you on track.
Yeah, it's probably the delusion from where we go back to.
Really?
You see, the minute I positioned it as a challenge versus myself, I was like, oh, I'm going to win this.
So that's what you did?
Yeah. Like it became like climbing Everest. It became a marathon. It became like something where imagine something where every single day you set a record. Imagine going to the gym every single day.
Yeah.
No, and that's a record. Every day for me is a record.
Because it's another tick, another day. Yeah.
And like you reframe it like that, you go, oh my God, like every day I am getting a PB. Doesn't matter what I do in the Peloton, doesn't matter what I do in the gym. Every day for me is a PB. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool.
That's an amazing way to look at it.
And I was like, that's pretty cool because you get that sense of achievement. And I think, we've got so many people these days who are looking for that kind of gratification, that kind of, external validation a lot of times. It is external validation people want. But like to get internal validation from what you're doing and like every day wake up and know you're getting internal evaluation is incredible, because every day's a challenge still. There's days like isn't linear. It's not like it's not like day 200 is better than day 1 at all. Because actually you get further away from the pain.
Right, yeah.
So I'm so far away from like why I stopped drinking. Like I said to you before, my drinking wasn't the problem, it was the anxiety. I ain't got that anxiety now.
So you haven't got the force, the connection to...
Yeah, but I could probably drink and be fine now. Because I haven't got the problems.
Yes.
So then like the reasons why are like so much less now in terms of a health perspective and well-being perspective. Short term, I put one drink. If I drink one beer, my life's not going to fall apart.
Yeah.
But like, it then becomes the start of a downhill spiral, because I believe from then it can only go downhill. So I'm like, but then you kind of play your mind over the time. You have difficult parts. Someone asked me yesterday, it was like, do you think that anything that'll ever stop you being sober? And I think I've gone through everything. I've gone through incredible highs. I've gone through professional lows and personal lows, but I've not gone through major grief. So that's the one emotion I don't, because my drinking's emotion, it's emotional response. You know, I've not gone through like proper major grief, and touch wood, I never do.
Yeah.
But like something, you know, I'm not talking about grandparents because you expect your grandparents to pass, it's natural. Some major trauma, I don't know how to respond to that. Maybe that would be something that gets me into drink, and that is a challenge I'm preparing myself for. Like I've got to like be conscious of that, because if something tragic happens tomorrow,
how do you? Because you want to block it out.
I need to respond, and I'm gonna have to respond. So like, this is probably like the anxiety in my life coming. Like, you know, I'm not an anxious person, but you think about these things. So that's the only thing I think where I've not dealt with emotionally through drink yet. So if I get through that, or if that never happens, hopefully it never happens, then I don't think I'll ever need to drink.
Yeah. I think the way that you've got the self-awareness of that about why you drink, and also kind of anticipating the problems before, you know, knowing how the personality characteristic you've got would respond to that, which again, it's like it's not unique to you. Many people would struggle with it. I will probably be the same. It's what is the ultimate thing to help you escape.
What you know, you have a shitty day at work and you get home on Thursday, like the habitual mindset of pouring a glass of wine is so low, it like everyone does it. But like for me, there's like 20 things I do before even considering pouring a glass of wine.
Of course.
You've
changed your habits.
Yeah, exactly. Go for a walk, work out, read a book, you know, cook a nice meal, you know, go and having a shitty day, okay, and walking into Sainsbury's and spending £10 on a bottle of wine. You could just go and like spend £10 on some really nice food and be like, okay, I've had a shit day, I'm going to cook myself something really nice. Yeah. And it achieves the same goal. And actually achieves it better because you don't have the down part afterwards of getting drunk and the hangover. Yeah. So what we've got in this country, especially, I think, is that association between alcohol and emotions where, oh, I've gone, dear, have a glass of wine. Sort yourself out. Oh, you just something happens. Oh, have a fizz.
Exactly. Yeah.
And like
it's both spectrums, isn't it? Celebration. The worst thing in the world happens. It's a go-to for all of that.
And I think what people need to learn is that there's so many other things they can do in those moments to have a better output than the drink. And I think if you do that, that then builds such a better, healthier habits. Yeah. Like imagine like every single time you have a really, really shit day, you go and run a 5K. Yeah. Because you could do that.
That would give a way better effect.
Yeah. Because you can train yourself to do that.
Wine, yeah.
You get a bad text, go and run a 5K. Yeah. Simple as that. But now people get bad days, they have bad things happens. You know, people lose. You know, people's teams lose a football game. Drink. Yeah. Drink. But all it is stimulus.
It's just habit.
It's stimulus, response, and habit. If the stimulus that you can't change, the stimulus is happening. The stimuluses are always going to happen. I could look at my phone right now and like have 4 or 5 bad messages of things that have gone on. You know, it's like, but I'm not going to go run to the pub.
Yeah, I have learned that actually. If anything, like text about anything, I'm like, oh God, like I need to deal with that, but I don't know how to, or I don't want to be reactive. I do that, go out for a run or go to the gym, then come back to it. You've got the endorphin high, you've lifted, you've basically, running for me is like meditation almost. So you go into this meditative state, then you can come back to it, refresh. It's the only way that flips it. Whereas the old me would kind of just go, right, I've got all this in, just in a frenzy, dash it all off. Yeah. And it's actually there is time. You can just have 5 minutes. You don't need to, right, I need to forget that thought. Let's drink it away.
Yeah. And I can tell you now, we could sit here for hours. We could have every single person in our phone books, but you couldn't give me one reason why anyone needs to drink. Yeah. Ever. Yeah. Because they're all not real. There's no real reason to drink.
So, Dom, just for people listening to this about advice to going through what you've gone through on any scale, what if you think you've got a problem with drinking, or if you think that you're struggling with your mental health, like you can be from depression to anxiety, particularly from a guy perspective. Because I think for you, like being a man in, you know, as an entrepreneur, on the outside, everything is looking great, but actually on the inside, things are falling apart. Yeah. And we all know men, particularly at a young age, are the ones that we really want to break down those barriers with. What advice would you give them?
I think the first thing to say to people is like, it's not boring not drinking. Like, you're not boring.
Yeah, you're anything but,
and
actually.
People say, oh, have a drink, you'll be boring. So like, there is a real superpower in not drinking, because when you tell people that you don't drink, it straight away it reflects on them because they question themselves. So I'd say like my best advice on mental health ever is not to drink alcohol, because what it does to your body, what it does to your thoughts, but also, you know, the the pain that you're going to experience, the little jibs, the little banter, and the little social pressures of not drinking, miles more worth it than the actual problems that you can create from drinking. So I always say to people, when you tell people you don't drink, and they say, oh, why don't you drink? Just go back and say, why do you drink?
Yeah.
Because they can't have an answer.
Exactly. Yeah.
They'll go, because everyone else does.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, well, if everyone else jumps off a cliff, you go jump off a cliff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So like, you've got to think about how you frame it and reposition
and it is a superpower because it's more powerful. You're anything but boring if you don't need to follow the crowd.
Exactly. Like the ability to walk into a rave or do Coachella Festival that I've done and be stone cold sober. People go, how?
Yeah.
Literally, that's the thing. How do you do it? I'm like, it's easy. You know, you can just live in the moment and enjoy the presence of people around you without having to be liquidated.
Another point then, Dom, just to kind of wrap things up. So going back to confidence and your confidence journey again, what advice do you have for people maybe who're struggling with the confidence, or just looking back at the journey you've been on of having it, losing it and rebuilding it? What would you say?
Yeah, I'd say confidence obviously is such an important part of life. Like it allows you to kind of like go after things that you don't think you're qualified for. There's a lot of things you can do in life which make you lose your confidence. That can be energy, that can be body confidence, that could be mentally how you approach it. And like just look at these things around your life and say, actually, this is making me better or making me worse as a person. Even Instagram, you can lose confidence from Instagram.
Of course, yeah.
Following good looking people, I'll be like, oh my god, because I haven't got a six pack. Oh my god, people aren't going to find me attractive.
Yeah.
So like, you have to ask yourself a question. If you feel like you're struggling with confidence, it's like any skill. It is a skill, and that's what I think it is. It's any skill. Look at how you can build it up. I didn't like public speaking. I would never have done this 6 years ago.
Yeah, neither did I.
Never would have done this 6 years ago. But because I've spent time, I've practiced it, I've listened. I hate hearing my voice back, so I still never listen to anything back.
Really?
Never.
Why do you hate your voice?
I hate the sound of my voice on tape. I don't know why. I like it when it comes out my mouth.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I was the same actually.
But listening back,
I'm struggling when I'm watching these podcasts again. Actually, going, I'm like cringing. Everyone's going, it's really good. I'm like, do I actually do that?
Yeah, exactly. We're all the same. I still don't do that. I don't have to. I don't have to because I think I've worked on like my delivery to be confident that what I'm saying, I'm getting across the value.
Yeah, of course.
So you learn to navigate your own confidence, and you learn to be able to be better at what you feel worse at by putting yourself out there. And I think confidence is a skill. You've got to work at it.
Yeah.
Any skill. You don't just start playing the piano because you want to play the piano. You don't just have confidence because you want confidence. You've got to be able to put yourself in situations where it's going to grow and develop. And that's what I'd say is that if you treat anything like a skill, public speaking, confidence, game, whatever, everything is a skill. Everything can be learned, everything grown. You come back to footballers, and people who call footballers incredibly talented, I think are very short-sighted because actually straight away what they're doing is they're brushing off their capabilities as something that God gave them or they were created born with, when really talent does not exist. Talent is not a thing. Everything is a skill which has been worked out.
Yeah, consistent hard
work and learn. So if you say people have got talent, you're straight away disregarding yourself as someone who could go and do that.
Yeah.
So even singing, I have the worst singing voice, but I've never tried. I've never practiced and never took my time. And Ed Sheeran the other day shared a video of him when he first played the guitar, and it was the worst song I've ever heard in my life.
Really?
Horrible. He says that him singing and playing guitar was horrible, but he practiced and he grew. So I think that's the most important thing, is that if you want confidence and you want to be better at stuff, really you've got to put in the hard work, and there's no shortcut.
Well, there's so many things we've covered, so much inspiring advice, so thank you so much. And obviously as well, massive respect to you for you turning things around, sticking to it, and have gone in such an amazing direction. So
thank you.
Thanks a lot for speaking to me.
Well, thanks for having me.
No problem, thanks.